The ring of fire, apart from this new moon solar eclipse that we were all just witness to in our beautiful skies on February 17th, 2026. Oh yes, the first day of the Chinese New Year, the year of the fire horse, is actually a massive belt of volcanic and seismic activity in the Pacific. It is where the tectonic plates meet. It is where the pressure builds, and it is where movement beneath the surface erupts. Pressure, movement, release. Pressure, movement, release. Where have we seen this before? This is something we are witness to in our everyday lives. But what fascinates me isn't the volcano per se, it's that pattern. It's the pattern of the pressure beneath the surface, the tension rising, the invisible momentum, the movement, and then suddenly the eruption. This is something that happens in our lives daily, in our work environments, in our society, in our politics, and basically everywhere around us. Hi there, my name is Anita. I am of Her Divine Path. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share this video if any of this resonates with you. I am here to share nature-led intuitive medicine, ancestral wisdom, and of course, inner recalibration. Let's dive in. So let's talk about this pattern. It is literally a pattern that has to do with friction, compression, instability, tension, sudden release, and reshaping of the physical land, but also a reshaping of our inner landscapes and our external environments. When we have these eruptions, everything changes within us and outside of us. And what people may not realize is that pattern is archetypal. And I'm going to go into the archetype of the fire horse. But first, I am going to discuss how that perhaps the ring of fire, this geological wonder, is actually a metaphor for us. So in mythology and in symbolic language, the fire horse represents a sort of movement under intensity. It is a momentum. It is a movement that is refusing to be still, stagnant. It's that sort of momentum. It's a change that feels disruptive, really disruptive, before it actually feels transformative. It's that boiling before the transformation. The horse, of course, we know equals propulsion, speed, adventure, moving forward, ahead, and the fire is volatility and transformation. And when the two of those meet, we have an accelerated transformation, and that is what is transpiring right now. And I don't know if any of you have been feeling this, because many would believe that we have entered the year of the fire horse and all of a sudden everything is just supposed to move forward with calm, collected coolness, and there is not going to be any sort of building of tensions. No, I know I have felt this for the last 2 days. It has been a lot of intense energy. Today, specifically, I sat in my car watching wild turkeys walk by. After my dog and I had a short walk, I had this beautiful panoramic view of the falls in front of me while sitting in the parking lot of a convent, and I just broke down crying. And it felt good to release that, because I actually hadn't released like that in a long time. And I just sat in my car where it felt safe, because I don't know if many of you know, but I actually lived in my car for 5 months, and I really learned to adapt to that situation and enjoy the peace and serenity and quiet in my car, especially because I was always surrounded by nature. I would wake up, open the door, let my dog out, and I would have these vast, beautiful mountains in Western Newfoundland before me, and I would have the ocean before me. I would often be in the woods, so I would have these immense pine trees before me. We would go hiking, and so I actually felt this sense of serenity. So for me to be feeling this intense energy with the incoming fire horse energy, it's been a little unsettling in some ways. And why is this? Well, the ring of fire shows us that this is what happens when pressure builds. Now, I have had a slight pressure building. I am still navigating my social media online presence. I have still been unable to find work. I've been writing 2 books. I have my dog that I've been taking care of. I am in a new environment. I don't have the ocean near me where I can just go and escape and and balance, recalibrate. And so there is this slight pressure building underneath me because I know where I want to be come April, even July. I know what I wish to obtain for this year, in the year of the fire horse. I want to use this momentum wisely because it has been a very turbulent several years for me, probably since COVID, March 2020, when I first lost my job as an events manager. And since then, I feel like I've always been trying to keep my head above water. So this point where I find myself now is a place of cocooning, recalibrating. I am in the void, the dark, the nothingness. I am being asked to be very internal, while at the same time I've suddenly been asked and guided to share my wisdom. So this is what I am embarking on this journey for. And where it leads, I do not know, but I've been guided by Source to do this. So this is where I am. But I have been feeling this slight pressure build. I'm feeling a little bit of societal pressure, and I'm feeling pressure of myself on myself. And then also just the pressure building in our environment, in our nations, politically, and in our universe on Earth. So the Ring of Fire actually shows us that this is what happens when pressure builds without a release. It sort of bubbles and bubbles and bubbles and bubbles. And the fire horse archetype actually shows us what happens when movement carries that pressure forward. So if you've got that pressure boiling and murmuring and boiling and murmuring, and then all of a sudden you've got this horse coming through with speed, that's just like a major collision of energy. I envision it as molecules colliding at the speed and the intensity they do. And so this for me is what happens when we have this fire horse energy and the archetype of the fire horse. And I will go further into the archetype of the fire horse in another video. But this is where it gets super, super interesting for me, because historically we have known that the volcanic regions are some of the most fertile lands on Earth. So we have this destruction, eruption, renewal, fertility. This is why you are seeing people say there is going to be an abundance flow coming in for us and for many who have been struggling, because this pressure keeps building and has been building over the years as we have left the year of the wood snake. The shedding was very difficult, especially the last few days, the last few weeks, the last few months. I found personally in my last months of the wood snake shedding, that is when I was thrown into the wilderness to live in solitude in my car with my dog, connect with nature one-on-one, and really be guided by Source. I was then thrown into my dad's basement, a dark basement that was mold and mildewy and damp. And of course I've been doing some aesthetic renovations, and I got rid of all the mold and the dampness, and I've been making it look really, really cute. But it's a dark, I only have one window where there's a little bit of light coming in, and so I feel like Source is putting me here in this cocoon phase, because what is going to happen coming out of it will be my renewal. And that is when, for me, the ground will be fertile. So let's just rephrase this. Volcanic regions are some of the most fertile lands on Earth, and that destruction then leads to renewal and that destruction leads to renewal and leads to fertility. It is the same thing that happens with forest fires. Now, the civilizations that lived or live near this instability have learned adaptation. Now, I remember when I first visited Costa Rica, it might have been about 2003, 2004. We were in Arenal, the little village surrounding Arenal. It's also where I almost lost my life, because I had eaten almonds without realizing I had developed an allergy to them, and so I literally was minutes away from dying. But that's a story for another time. However, I had a major shift in Costa Rica, and I remember walking outside of the little inn or bed and breakfast we were staying at and staring at this magnanimous volcano mountain, I'm getting goosebumps. And I remember saying to the friend I was with, as I was watching people go to work and walk to work and seeing this smoke come out of the volcano, I looked at her and I said to her, it must be really odd living in a place where you are always on the verge of death, per se. And what I meant by that is that the volcano could erupt at any given moment and you would have to flee for your life. Those who stayed could be risking their lives. And either way, the land would have been transformed and lives would have been destroyed. So again, there was that destruction, renewal, fertility, but I felt it. I felt that energy. But at the same time, there was this immense energy that is being given from the earth, because it is this fire energy, this eruptive, explosive energy that's just sort of murmuring. And that's a pretty intense place to be. It's a pretty intense way to live. So I found it fascinating that most people who lived near the instability had learned to adapt and work with that energy. I'm getting goosebumps again. So why is that? Well, I think that when you constantly live in a zone of pressure or a pressure zone, it produces a sort of resilience. As well, you have to be prepared because it is going to erupt at some point, and so there has to be some sort of structural evolution that takes place there, and that's something at some point you might be needing to adapt to, and that also can lead to innovation. So I actually feel like most of these civilizations or people that live near seismic or volcanic activity, they tend to be quite innovative, and there is a sort of structural evolution, as mentioned, as well as a resilience. And we can even take a look at California and San Francisco. I mean, they tend to be extremely innovative technologically. In California, innovative with, it's one of the greatest wine regions in North America. So again, I feel like there is this inner knowing that when you live near a place that is a fault line, or where tectonic plates can move, as in San Francisco and California, or you are living near a seismic or volcanic activity, there is going to be an inner knowing of resilience and of a landscape, a structural evolution that could take place, whether just internal or internal and external. In the case of an area with seismic activity, it would be both internal and external, absolutely. But now let's just look at what the fire horse years actually are associated with. Symbolically, they've always been associated with acceleration and disruption, breakthroughs, societal shifts, and technological leaps. So we are actually seeing breakthroughs happen, as we are also seeing major societal shifts and absolute technological leaps, especially in the realm of AI. I am not saying that the volcanoes themselves are causing innovation. Don't go and quote her divine path and say, well, she claims that volcanoes cause innovation. What I am saying is that they create transformation, internal and external, because a pressure, regardless of the pressure, reorganizes a system. So when a personal or collective pressure builds, socially, economically, emotionally, it's going to feel really unstable. Again, I'm getting goosebumps, and we have been witness to that. So when personal or collective pressure builds socially, economically, emotionally, it feels unstable. And we have been witness to that instability for some time now, because we have been leading up to this fire horse energy. But I want to emphasize, instability does not always mean collapse. And instability is not always collapse. Sometimes it really is just a reorganization. I mean, think of all the times you have felt emotionally unstable and then you've erupted, and then a calm has come over you, the restructuring comes over you, the reorganization, and then you move forward with what it is that you've chosen to do. So, like the tectonic plates, we have the friction, which is the heat. We have the heat, which equals the eruption, and then we have the eruption, which is the new terrain. This happens with us in every single situation where we have been explosive, where we have gone under transformational friction, and where we have felt immense heat in our own lives, in our own inner landscapes. Now, I know that some people don't like friction because friction is discomfort, and many individuals are not up to meeting their discomfort. But discomfort is often where the lesson lies. People avoid discomfort because it's intense. It's very intense. I was evicted unlawfully and unjustly from my apartment in April of 2025. I had then moved into my meditation studio, a new meditation studio that I had just spent a year building and aesthetically recreating the interior of with whatever little money I had. And then I was evicted from there 4 months later, after I had been evicted from my home. Talk about friction. I then moved into my car. This is where I was living from. And that was extremely, extremely uncomfortable. There was a huge discomfort there because of the lack of support I had, because of the injustices. I was feeling immense discomfort with what I was going through. But I knew that I was being guided and led by Source. And at one point, this discomfort got so big and so great that I pulled over at the side of the road and I just bawled. And I actually had made a TikTok video about this because I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to go. And I remember at that one point just staring up at the sky, and this immense sun was beaming down on my face, on my tears as they streamed down my cheek, and all I heard was surrender. Surrender. And so I got mad. I got mad with Source. I was like, okay, you want me to surrender? You want me to surrender? All right, then I'm going to live this experience like an adventure. And I did. And when I did, that intensity became my breakthrough. And I suddenly shed every single layer of conditioning left in me. I didn't need a house to prove my worth. I didn't need a job to prove my value. I didn't need extensive income to prove that I was even worthy of making it. All I needed was myself, food, and a place to sleep while connecting with nature. I would bathe in a lake. I would cook outside. I slept under the stars, and I actually had the breakthrough. Now, I'm not suggesting that natural disasters are all spiritual messages or everything that befalls us is a spiritual message, but indeed, if we look deep into what is transpiring, we can see a pattern there, and our earth, our universe is built on patterns, and I'm observing that the same pattern of pressure and release exists in nature and in human systems. So, in closing, the Ring of Fire reminds us that there is pressure beneath the surface, and that pressure eventually will reshape the landscape, our inner landscapes, our external landscapes. And the fire horse archetype is here to remind us that the intensity beneath that surface will eventually reshape our identity as a collective and as an individual. Both are disruptive, both are transformative, and neither are comfortable. Thank you for watching. If you feel any of this resonated with you or intrigued you, please feel free to click the like button, subscribe, and share. I am just here to share some wisdom that I've learned along my journey of awakening, as well as my journey of life, and help you move along in yours.